Hi, everybody. Darla McCamey and Kevin McCamey here. Today, we're going to talk about ULA and specifically ULA Finance. So, with ULA Finance, I am not a finance guru by any means, but I know how to make money, I know how to spend money, and I am out of debt except for our mortgage. So we know a little bit. We've been around the block. We've been through debt. We know it's hard when you get stuck with debt. So Kevin and I are going to go through part of the ULA framework that helps people get better balance with their finances today. So finance can be going over a monthly budget, making extra money, a green gap, an emergency fund, being debt free, having some investments, getting ready for retirement, having some fun money, any of that. So we'll let Kevin get started and I'll put my 2 cents worth in, haha, as we go.
All right, thanks, Darla. So one of the first things that we might ask, I guess, is why is finance important? You know, they don't really offer too many classes on personal finance in high school and even college. And so a lot of times people, as they grow up and they get educated on lots of different things, they're not educated on their own personal finance, unfortunately. And so we end up with people that are unsure of what they should do, and they get a job and they have money start coming in and they need a place to live. So they have to get either an apartment or they have to buy a house and they get a mortgage. And all of a sudden, they start very quickly accumulating expenses that they're trying to possibly live up to where their parents were living when they left home. And sometimes they're not making the same kind of income that their parents, who have been working for several years and have an established career, when young people graduate from college, they often are not making the same kind of money that their parents are. And so they're trying to have this standard of living, but they're only making this much income. So what happens? Very easily, we fall into the trap of using credit cards. They're so easy to get. It's 0% interest for the first 6 months. And it is sometimes. And so we start using those, and suddenly we start living and we start going to work every day and coming home. And we thought we had enough money to pay off that credit card at the end of the month, but all of a sudden, the washer and dryer that we received secondhand from one of our parents is broken. And now we're going to have to replace the washer. And there is not any money in our budget for that. So we have to finance it because we didn't have an emergency fund of money set aside. Now we have to finance it on a credit card. So there's another expense. And instead of paying off that credit card that we use to furnish our house, now we're adding more expense, possibly on another credit card. And we're only paying the minimum balance on the first one. And so we start living our lives, and sooner or later, possibly children are born. And children are expensive. They're wonderful. We love them, but they are expensive. They are not bringing in any income into the household. It's all up to the parents to do that. And there are hospital bills. There can be extra medical bills if there are complications with pregnancy. And all of a sudden, you can find yourself in a great big hole of huge expense from medical expense. And I personally lived through that with a couple of my daughters that were born and needed extra care when they were born. So, what do you do? Well, you have to pay that off, and you may have to get another credit card. And all of a sudden, as these expenses, these unexpected things that were not planned tend to happen, you start utilizing the quick fix of paying it off with a credit card. And then you have this monthly expense that you're paying on. As the uh, all we can do, because now we've got 3 or 4 or 5 credit cards possibly, all we can afford to pay, we think, is the minimum balance because that's what fits in our budget. We're out of money at the end of the month if we pay more than that. And so what happens then, unfortunately, is the credit card companies are basically you're paying for the interest on the money you borrowed, but you're not paying off any of that original debt. And the uh, interest that's being charged is often even more than what just the monthly payment is because now it's not 0% anymore. It's jumped up to maybe 16 or 20% or more. And so now you're really in this big hole. And that's where a lot of people find themselves, unfortunately, in America. And so that's the situation that we want to talk about today. Darla and I have both lived through this. And we know what it is to go through those things and do all those things that I just talked about. And unfortunately, it's not healthy for your finances, and it's definitely not healthy for your life to be in that condition. Because when you put yourself in that big hole, now you are indebted to those credit card companies, and you are basically forced to go to work, perhaps at a job you don't like, because it at least allows you to pay the bills. And that is a very unfortunate situation to be in because now work is not cannot be joyful. You feel like you have to go do that just to pay for your bills. And it's just not a good situation to be in. Then let's take another unexpected occurrence that can happen in life. What if one of you loses your job? All of a sudden, that money that was coming in every month because you were going in and doing the work is vanished and it's no longer there. And now the bills that you had up here and the income you had here, now your income drops. And now this is even more of a dire situation. So we are going to talk about how you can get out of that situation. And it will take work. It's not just an automatic quick fix process. But when you are disciplined and you stick to it, you will be amazed what happens after you work yourself through this process. And many, many other people who have used the ULA framework, and especially the green gap formula that Darla mentioned, have found that it works amazingly. And they feel so much freer once they go through this process. Darla, what do you think about all of that?
Man, that's a lot of doom and gloom all around money. Ugh. Anyway, I think that we're starting to get away with less green dollar bills in our hands. And I think we just pay with a credit card. I know I do. I use my credit card to get gas. Because I don't like to walk into the mini mart and pay and take all the time to do that. I pay with a credit card when I go buy groceries. I pay with a credit card for just about everything, actually. And when, first of all, when you very first get your very first credit card, and then your second and your third, or how many ever you all have, you actually sign something to get that credit card. And then that actually, in all the fine print of that, means that you agree if they use this money that you'll use the money, but in all that fine print, it really does say that you'll pay them back. It's a little more than a pinky swear that you're going to pay it back. So it doesn't mean that when you get in this huge pile of debt all of a sudden because you were having fun or having misfortune, that it's not still a debt, that you still need to have discipline and integrity to pay it back, right? So that's really important. I think when I know that I spend $5 for a cup of coffee, or I don't drink coffee, but for a cup of tea, just say at the Starbucks or wherever you go, I know if I have $5 and I'm giving someone $5 for that, it's more in my brain than when I hand them a card, right? And so there's little mind things that you can do to like pay attention to how much money you're spending. And uh, I think, sometimes I just say, oh, honey, it's just money. I'm like, you have to have a good relationship with money also. And just know that there's help to get out of debt. And there's other programs out there too that help you figure out a budget and help you do cash. But ULA has a way where you still have a little bit of fun with your money and you still can live with the money that's coming in. And so we have more information here for you. So let's just get to the next thing. I'll ask Kevin the next one. So Kevin, who really needs to have a financial plan? You hear that term on TV and commercials and bankers, and I think about people with hundreds of thousands of dollars and people in a higher income bracket that need a financial plan. So what does that mean, and who needs a financial plan?
That's a great point, Darla, because I remember seeing those commercials when I was younger and thinking, oh, well, that's not concerning me. I don't
Me,
have any
right?
money to invest right now. I can barely pay off
Mhm.
my bills, and I'm paying this credit card with this credit card. So, how would I ever have a plan? How would I ever have a financial plan to be able to
Right,
invest some money?
right.
And so, that's a great point. But the honest truth is, a financial plan is not just about investing money for retirement. A financial plan is when you start out, do you have a budget?
Mhm.
Have you established, okay, this is how much our mortgage or our rent is? This is how much our car, we're going to have to pay for gas and for fuel maintenance, car insurance, our cell phones that we can't live without anymore, the cable bill for
Right.
TV, the internet at home. I mean, how could we live without that? Possibly. I don't know how the pioneers did it, right?
Right.
And then you have all the things that you just grow up thinking they're magic and they just happen. When you flip a switch, the light comes on. But there's actually a bill attached to that. It's the electric bill, or maybe it's a gas bill for the dryer or for the stove. And then you move into a neighborhood and they charge you just so they can tell you that you didn't trim your bushes low enough. That's called a home association fee. And then they want you to pay for water. Isn't water supposed to be free? No, water's not free. It costs money, just like everything else does. And the guys that come pick up your trash, they want to get paid too. And then if you're lucky enough to try to be starting to plan ahead so that if something drastic happened to you, that your family would be taken care of, well, now you're purchasing life insurance. And then we haven't even talked about eating yet. So we've got all of these bills that are just normal bills of surviving and having sustenance and shelter. And we've already talked about all the credit cards that we've layered in and added on top of that. So your budget is going to say, this is what I have to pay every month. And then it's going to show you how much money you have coming in. And we'll look at a spreadsheet here in just a little bit that I've devised to help you utilize the green gap formula. But everybody needs a financial plan.
Sounds really boring to me, but anyhow, it's really true. So you have to actually pay attention to it. So if you're someone that you're not driven by this, or it is on your back burner in your thought process about going through your day, it doesn't naturally come to you to learn about this, it's still important. It might be like being wrong-handed or something. I don't know, but you got to start using this part of your brain and figure out your finances, because finances are one of the #1 reasons for stress. And when you're stressed, it affects your body over time. And when you're stressed, it affects your relationships over time. And when you're stressed, you may not be performing as well at work, and you may have some difficulties at work. And when you're stressed, you may not enjoy your drive to work or to home. And when you're worried about money or concerned about debt, or you don't want to answer your phone anymore because you have debtors calling you, it's time to do something about it. But we want to help you do something before it even gets to that point. So you need to make sure you figure out your goals and your plans, and what do you want to do in your life, and then how are you going to get there. So it doesn't mean that you need to stop your dreams because of the finances and you don't have the money yet. We'll help you figure out your dreams, and then we'll help you figure out your finances so that you can live the life that you desire. And so there's hope. It's not all doom and gloom when we're talking about this. And then, what's your relationship with money? The mindset behind your relationship is a big deal, and sometimes it goes back to your very first money memory. Kevin, when you were growing up, what did you first learn or remember about when you first had money when you were growing up?
Right. The first thing that I remember about money is that when my grandparents would come to visit us, I would sometimes they would give me a penny, especially my grandfathers would do that, or a nickel. And then I remembered as I got a little older, they would give me a quarter. Now, in today's standards, if I give my grandkids a penny, they're not very impressed. You know, if you don't give them $1, it doesn't mean too much to them. But, that's just the way that inflation works, I guess. And so anyway, I remember getting those coins. And back in my day, when I was a child, I actually had a piggy bank. It was a ceramic piggy bank, and it had a hole in the top, a slot that a coin would fit through. And you could stuff a dollar bill in there if you were lucky enough to get a dollar bill for your birthday. And I remember being told by my father, when my grandfather would give me a quarter, and I would think, oh, I'm going to go get some candy with this quarter. And my father would say, you should probably put that in your piggy bank and save it for a rainy day. And I begrudgingly would go and take that quarter and put it in the piggy bank. But I knew that when I dropped it, it would make that sound. And the more that I dropped, first it would hit the ceramic and it was kind of, an echo. But then the more that I put in that piggy bank, it started sounding different. Oh, it's hitting other coins. The coins were increasing inside of my piggy bank, and I actually like the sound of that. So that's the first money memory that I have. How about you, Darla?
Well, same thing. I think I remember birthday cards the most. Getting some kids even open a card and shake it first to see if money will come out, right? So I remember getting $1 or something in my birthday cards when I was little. Um, I don't really know that I remember allowance very much, but I know that a lot of my friends always had an allowance, and if they did their chores, they would get an allowance. There's a lot of old-fashioned sayings like money doesn't grow on trees and things like that. And um, another big one is money is the root of all evil. And Kevin and I are very strong Christians. We don't believe that at all. We believe the love of money, it could not be beneficial.
Right.
The
Which is
love of money could be the root of
what the
evil.
Bible says. The love of money
The
is the root of
love of
all.
money, but not just money. So Ephesians 3:20, go, that's the good part. Go look it up. Um, good people do good things with money. So money is not just for badness and debt and um, hard stuff and paying bills all the time. Good people do good things with money. So there's a lot of goodness that comes around money. And when we are prosperous and we have a good financial income coming in, it's usually because we're serving someone in some way. So when you are serving and feeling good about how you're making money and what you do with your money and be able to give freely, then money is a good thing. So those are my thoughts and my mindset around money. When, like, if this hardship is going on and you have extra money and you can pay someone's house payment for them or put gas in their car for them, then give freely. It's just money, right? Like, good people do good things with money. So back to the financial plan, Kevin, like, when do we start that? Like, I know we do it, but what's the right age or whatever to start a financial plan?
Right. Great question, Darla. So, believe it or not, I think my father was trying to start my financial plan when he told me to go put those coins in my piggy bank. And
Makes
that's
sense.
actually when it should start.
Hey, makes sense,
We,
right?
as parents and grandparents, need to be sure we're teaching our children and grandchildren about the value of money.
Mhm.
And when you pay for this piece of candy or this candy bar, then you don't have the money anymore and you've eaten the candy, and sooner or later it's going to taste good, but you're paying your quarter for that experience of how it's going to taste. It's not nutritional, and it's not going to help your body be fit, like we talked about last week,
Yeah, but it's
and it's
fun.
going to be gone.
But
It's
it's
not going to
fun.
last. Yes,
But
it's
it was
fun.
yummy.
It was fun and it was yummy, but they need to understand the value. So when you give up this money, this is what you're getting, and then it's gone, and you don't have
Yeah.
the money anymore. So that's a very small example of what we need to understand. And if you find yourself in a position where you didn't start back when you were a child, or your parents didn't teach you about the value of money and how to use money as a tool to help you accomplish things and survive and take care of your family like you should, and you're finding yourself in a situation like we talked about before, well, then we need to start your financial plan yesterday. So, in other words, immediately is the answer.
Yeah. Um, so we can guide you. We can help sit down with you and help get you started on this. And most importantly, it's really important to sit down and look at what you're spending and make sure that you're making more than you're spending, right? That's a big deal. Um, we used to, Kevin and I, when we were 20 and had a job and had bills, we had a checkbook and we paid our bills with a checkbook. I know that sounds really weird, but there was a log in the checkbook that we put our deposit in, $100, and you write a check for 20, so you have $80 left. Now, when you go to um, the bank and you just or you just go online and you look at your balance, you might see that something is out pending, and you have to just look at it on the computer. But if you just go look at your balance at the bank, a lot of young people have told me they do this. They go to put their ATM card in, they see their balance, and they just think they can take the money out. They forgot that they paid that bill that didn't clear the bank yet. And so then that's when they get into trouble, because they don't really have it written down. They paid a bill, but the bank said they still had money, so they still went and bought pizza and a movie that night. And then Monday morning they get into trouble, because then they have bank funds and, override and all that kind of stuff going on. So you kind of have to really pay attention somehow to really look at your bank statements every day and really know what's out pending before you think you still have money in the bank. So I think that's where some people get caught in that little trap, that they're not really understanding it. So that's something to help with people too. So Kevin, you've talked all the doom and gloom about debt. So how do we pay it off? How do we pay off our debt?
Great question, Darla. You would think we planned this ahead of time or something. Good question. So I'm going to put my accounting glasses on here, and I'm actually going to show you an example of a spreadsheet that I created, which will perhaps help you understand what the green gap formula is. So this is the spreadsheet, and I'll go ahead and make it full screen so that hopefully you can see it a little better. So what we see in the far left column here is that it is showing our monthly bills, just like I talked about a few minutes ago. So these are the things that we have to pay each month. You have some form of these. You may not have all of them. You may have decided to not have cable, and so you don't have that bill. You can take that off of your list. And I have some that are, you've got the electric bill, the gas bill, you're going to have those. You're going to have your mortgage. We happen to give money to charity and to our local church. And so we have a column on here for that. And this is by no means what our budget is or what your budget is. These are just numbers to help you kind of see and understand how the spreadsheet works and get an idea of an example of what your budget might look like also. So we come down here and we have all these items, and we have our grocery bill, and then we get into the credit cards. So here we have some credit cards, and we're trying to maybe pay more than just the minimum on these and make payments so we can get them paid off. Because what we didn't mention a while ago is that interest that the credit cards are charging you, when you just pay the minimum, well, now your balance is higher because you didn't pay it off. Now they're charging you interest on the interest that they charged you last month. And they're charging you interest on the interest on the interest in the last month. And they're charging you interest and interest on the month before that. So your credit cards will not be paid off if you only pay the minimum balance. That will not work. And so we have to devise a plan where we start devoting as much money to paying off debt as we can. So these, again, are just examples of what monthly payments might be. And so you get a total of the total expenses for that month of January. Then we have income coming in. So in a lot of households today, there are two incomes, and you might even have other incomes. We'll talk about that in a minute. So that's why there are blanks there. So here's the monthly income of two married people, for instance, and they have this much expense. And then the difference of the income minus the expense is called the green gap. Now, some of you may be in a situation where your green gap is actually zero. You don't have any extra money. Every bit of money you have coming in is going out. And so we've got to figure out ways that we can reduce what we are spending on expenses. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So here is our green gap. Then the green gap formula basically is it's to apportion whatever money is left over as 45% is going to go to investment. And the investment that I'm talking about at first is creating that emergency fund. Remember earlier on, we talked about the washer went out. Our washer went out just last week.
Yep.
It literally is demon possessed, and the top of it was ripped off from the bottom, and we had to replace it. And we were able to do that because we had an emergency fund. So when you need that emergency fund, that having that emergency fund gives you a sense of peace. Darla said, wow, that was great. We just went to the store and we just bought that because we had the money saved up for a unexpected expense. That's what an emergency fund is supposed to be. The emergency fund is money you put into a savings account. It's probably not going to earn an enormous amount of money, but it is very easy to get to. And if you need it for a real emergency, then you can get to that. And of course, you have to be disciplined. An emergency is not another cup of coffee at Starbucks. An emergency is not going out and having a fancy dinner. An emergency is when those things you have to live or to survive or to exist or to drive to work. That's another unexpected emergency, isn't it? Your tire blows out, the engine conks out. So repairing car repairs can be happening all the time if you have a car that is prone to that. So emergency fund helps to give you peace of mind that when those unexpected things happen, you've got some money to cover it. So how much money do you need in your emergency fund? Most financial experts suggest at the bare minimum, at least 3 months of expenses. So in our example, 4575, that would be about, just use a calculator here because that's a large number. And we'll make the sound of the calculator hitting the keys, and you'll think that's real cool that I've got my accounting glasses on. That would be almost $14,000, $13,725 that you would have in your emergency fund. Now, personally, in the ULA framework, we actually suggest that you have 7 months of expenses. That way, if you happen to lose your job or some unexpected occurrence happens, like maybe COVID-19, and you're furloughed, then you've got $32,000 to know and have peace of mind that you could actually pay off your expenses each month for 7 months without having to work. Now, wouldn't that be just like freedom? Does that like lift a load off your shoulders just thinking about it? I know it did for us when we had that established. So in these uncertain times, an emergency fund is crucial for you to have. So that's the first thing where your green gap investment is going to go. We're going to try and fill that up until you've got 7 months of expenses in that savings account. Okay. Now, with the other 45%, we're going to take that and we're going to start paying that $371 off on these credit cards. We're going to start paying on whatever the largest one is. We're going to start paying that off as quick as possible. with that $371. And then when it's all totally paid off, no balance, we're going to start on the next highest one. We're going to start paying it off and pay the next one off. These principles are similar to principles established by Dave Ramsey, if you've ever heard of him, and many financial experts. So 45% of our green gap goes to investment, and the first investment is an emergency fund. And then the other 45% is going to go to paying off the credit cards and getting out of debt. Now, 45 and 45 equals 90. So there's still 10% left, right? What is the 10% for?
Fun.
This is Darla's part right here. This is the fun part. So what kind of things can you do for $82 a month, Darla?
Oh, that's fun. It costs $10 to go to the lake here, so you could get an ice chest and some drinks and a sandwich and go to the lake. You could go to the park and play ball with your family and just take some snacks, and you could, if the movies open up again, you could have a movie date. And you can choose a dinner date that is not the fancy white tablecloth restaurant. You can have a barbecue dinner date with, paper plates and that kind of thing. So you can have all kinds of fun. But it is hard to go to work every day and come home and just pay bills and not have any fun. So we want you to make sure that that gets to be part of it, and you can, still enjoy yourself. You can rent a movie.
That's right. Good suggestions. Everything that you do for fun doesn't have to cost money. A lot of the things that we would like to do definitely cost money. But when you have small children at home, it's important to figure out those things that you can do that are less expensive so that you can afford to put yourself in a position like Dr. Troy Amdahl was. He tells stories in the book, ULA, Find Balance in an Unbalanced World, which of course the framework we teach is all based on that. He tells story of when he was younger and he was a doctor. He was driving an old Ford Pinto. And I know most of you have no idea what that is, but that was a really crappy car. Nobody wanted to drive that car. But he and his wife were driving old used cars that would often break down just to get by so they could afford more money to put towards their emergency fund and especially towards the green gap and starting to invest their money. So because they would find things that month that were very cheap, they might get to go out to eat pizza once a month because of how they were structuring their expenses and paying off debt. And if that's all they did, that's what they got to do. But they stuck to that and they were very disciplined of it. But because they went through those few years of very disciplined spending, he retired when he was 42. He did not owe anything. He paid off his house. He had no college medical expenses or medical school expenses. Everything was completely paid off at age 42. And now he works when he wants to. He does what he wants to. If they want to go on vacation right now, they are in Minnesota at the lake all summer. And so they get to have fun as a family because their kids suffered along with them when they were younger and they didn't get to go eat pizza and go and play at the amusement park every week. They limited that fun so that they could have lots of fun later. So good suggestions, Darla.
So I have some ways you could pay off debt.
Sure, go ahead.
So you can look at your cell phone bill, like Kevin said, we all have one. And you can go to the cell phone company and ask them to renegotiate your contract. That's one way that sometimes you're paying for something that you don't need, or they have a better plan now or something. So you could do that. Um, I think on your car insurance, if you bulk package it with your home insurance or something, if that applies to you, you get a better rate. Or maybe if you've not had any accidents, you could get a better rate. I know for years in Arizona, we didn't have this particularly in Texas, but in Arizona, we have an electric bill plan that if we have a higher rate um, per kilowatt of electric, if we use our electric between 3 o'clock in the afternoon and 8 p.m. And in the summertime, that's the heat of the day, and that's pretty rough to not use electric. But what we do is we program our pool pump to run in the night. So we have a much lower expense for that. And we do our laundry. Oh, and on the weekends, you can do it all day long or holidays. So all day, Saturday and Sunday, it doesn't have the 3 to 8 plan anymore. It's just the less expensive rate. And so we do our laundry on the weekend. We run our dishwasher, at the other times a day, and we run our pool pump at the other times a day. And our electric bill is quite a bit less expensive than you might think for our home and our pool. To be able to have a pool, I think it kind of offsets what it would normally cost to be able to run the pool. And we live in Arizona, and it's 110 or something today, and we run the air conditioner, so it's a big deal to save money on your electric bill. That's one way that you can do it. And then on your credit cards, you could call them and ask them if you've been a reliable payer and paying on time. You could probably call them and ask them for a reduced rate. And there's always room for negotiation on stuff like that. So just go ahead and ask. And the other thing that we've done is I found something that I loved. I am Western medicine nurse practitioner for 25 years, been in nursing. Um, but I was introduced to essential oils 5 years ago. And the thing is with essential oils, they have all of this other products that help keep your body free from toxins. And I will tell you that our toothpaste, our lotion, our shampoo, our bath products, shave cream, supplements, laundry detergent, dishwasher soap, dish soap, all of that, hand soap, I don't go to Target for anymore. I buy it from myself, basically, and I get credit back on that. But then also, I learned how to get all those products paid for. So I'm not going to the store and buying all of those products every month. So that's a big deal. Plus, I get to have the oils that I love, and it gets paid for. So if you love something, figure out how to get it paid for. That's a big deal. Um, and that's my little things on paying off debt. And sometimes people want to pay off a little debt first. But if you do pay off a small debt first, then as soon as you pay it off the next month, you use that money to pay off that big debt. So that's not like extra money. That goes towards that big debt to get the next one paid for. So
Right.
those are different strategies that you can use too. So another way that you can help pay off debt is get extra income. So part of that is what I just was talking about. But Kevin, where else can someone get extra income? They're already working all day long. So what's the deal with
Right.
that?
Right. So, as you already alluded to, Darla, some great points. And thank you also for mentioning about once you pay off the one credit card, the money that you were paying on that goes to start paying on other credit cards. It's not extra
Right.
money that's going into the fund money. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, on our spreadsheet, when we come over here, once we have paid off those debts and your green gap increases, well, now you're starting to invest more into your emergency fund, or maybe we're starting to create an investment of long term in a mutual fund or bonds or a mixture of those that's going to actually be earning more money. So yes, as this green gap increases, we're just increasing the percent, we're increasing the amount that we are paying on investment and then paying off debt, off those other debts until it's gone. That's what allows it to get paid off faster. So thank you for making sure we got that point hit home today. All right, so now you asked me, how can we get extra money? Well, you, of course, also mentioned about starting another business, a small business you can do out of your house. I would say also just ask yourself, what skills do I have? What skills do I know how to do that other people don't like to do? And if you know how to do things that other people don't like to do, you can make some money. So on weekends or nights, if you're working a daytime job, you can find ways to earn a second income, and we can start filling that in on our spreadsheet as another level of income here that would help again to increase your green gap and make more money available for investment. The other thing to do is you can sell things. You know, those credit cards that we used originally, do you remember how we probably bought some things that, boy, at the time, that was going to make our life so much better? And then we start to use them and maybe they don't make our lives better, and we find we don't even like to use them. So things that you don't want to use, but other people might like to use, they'll actually pay you for that. So have a garage sale or sell it on Facebook or Instagram or whatever methods might be available to you, and clear that item out of your house. You'll find that clearing things out of your house and making more room in your house allows you to have this sense of being able to breathe a little bit more, not being so crowded with all of this extra stuff that has been weighting you down in your debt and causing you to dig a deeper hole. And now it's out of your house and you just have some more freedom with that. So it's a great release to just get rid of stuff and also make some money. So that money that you do make from selling those things, where does it go? It goes into our green gap, and we invest part of that and we continue to pay off debt even more. So as you can see on our chart, when we can get rid of these credit cards alone, just look at the difference that that allows us to make. We're now paying off 800, twice as much that we're investing and twice as much that we are using to pay off debt. And you might say, well, what debt do we have? What about your mortgage? If you have a house, it is a great idea to pay that off as soon as possible. It doesn't have to take 30 years to pay it off. The principle in the ULA framework is to never mortgage your house for more than a 15-year mortgage. Now, many of you just fell out of your chair because you've always had a 30-year mortgage because that's what you could afford the monthly payment for. And what you realize when you look at the total amount paid for a 30-year mortgage compared to a 15-year mortgage, the amount is astronomical. And that's because you're stretching it out over that extra 15 years, you're paying a lot more interest to the bank. And so even though it seems like it's costing you less per month to live in your house, in total, you're going to pay a lot more money to the bank for that. And the initial first years that you're living in your house and you're paying your mortgage, guess where the majority of that money goes? It goes to pay the interest. Oh, those bankers, they're wily coyotes, aren't they? They are getting all their money as soon as they can. Okay? so that sometimes when people foreclose, then they get stuck with a house and they don't get paid everything. So that's why they take all their interest as soon as they can in that mortgage amortization. That's what that's all about. That's the amount of interest and principal that you're paying in your monthly mortgage. So, what can we do? Once we get our credit cards paid off, we can take that $800 or $400, whatever the amount is, and we can make an extra principal payment each month. So if you start paying off an extra payment, now you're going to start cutting the years down because you're paying 2 months against the principal, the original value of the house that you got your loan for. That's the principal. You're starting to pay that twice a month instead of once a month. So applying that and making sure the bank knows this is for an extra principal payment. You make that in the details of your online banking payment that you send, or if you're still using a checkbook, you write it on the memo line to make sure they know that's an extra principal payment so they don't apply it to interest. Okay. So if you have a 30-year mortgage, that's the least you can do is when you have that extra money in your green gap that you're going to pay towards debt, start paying off your mortgage faster. Now, we recently refinanced a mortgage so that it was in a 15-year time frame. And we are still paying a second principal payment every month. So theoretically, instead of it taking us 15 years, we should really pay our house off in about half that time. And then we will really be totally debt free. So sell things, do what Darla said, suggest you reduce your credit card interest because you are paying on time. Reduce your cell phone bill. If you're not using all the minutes that you're paying for instance, then trim that back down. Keep an eye on those things. If you have extra subscription fees to online services that you may or may not use all the time, figure out what you really will use as a family and delete those other ones. And that will give you extra money. So you get more zeros in here. You're going to start getting a lot more dollar signs down here in your green gap that you can pay towards your investments. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Yeah, I
Darla,
think
what do you
with
think?
all great information, selling something, serving somebody. You know, we walk in our neighborhood every morning, and one of our neighbors, we have some neighborhood social media too, but even in front of her yard, she put a little sign that she's sewing masks, and she's selling them for $12. And how many I don't know what her profit margin is, but there's some money. There's a little bit of extra money right there. And I don't know if they're having struggles with COVID or not, but she learned how to pivot. And so part of finding extra income is maybe having an open mindset and knowing what you're good at. And like Kevin said, some of you might be handyman, some of you might be able to help someone with childcare, someone might be able to build something. I bought a raised planter box to have a raised garden. Somebody built that for me in his backyard. That was his extra money. So there's all kinds of things that you can do to make extra money, and not have those expenses going out. And another thing I wanted to say about finances is sometimes you're going along just fine and you have all of this figured out, and then a life change happens. An unexpected divorce might happen. An unexpected death in the family might happen. An unexpected medical cost might come upon you. Those are huge things that happen. And maybe you have some complicated financial things going on. And so that's where Kevin and I can help you with the basics, but we also have financial advisors too that we get help from financial advisors, and so we have those resources too. So um, just know that we understand that some people are doing well and are secure in their finances, but then when life tumbles on you, it's a big mindset thing to be able to get your head around it and be able to have an open mindset of how can I survive, how can I still um, get through life day to day with this hardship that has come upon me. So that's part of ULA, how we help people get through um, life unbalanced as well. So tell me more about like why someone needs ULA coaching and how it can help with their finances.
Sure, Darla. So what we found is I'm going to talk about what we found as far as our finances go. So once we had kind of established, we'd paid off our debts, we had our emergency funds set, and we also were now paying off our house is the only debt we have left. What we found is we needed some help. We needed a coach in the financial investment area. And so we actually have a financial planner who is working with us to invest our green gap money. And so he is investing it for us in a mixture of mutual funds, bonds, and investments that will help us to hopefully achieve over time at least a 10% interest rate on our money. So as we put that money in, we're getting 10% back instead of just 0.005% that you might get from a savings account at the bank, or maybe 0.1% on some special savings account. So a financial planner can be an important help, especially when you're starting to invest. And so just as we did get a financial planner for our investment, and many people, as we talked about last week, get a fitness coach to help them become more fit and more healthy. In your life, as we look at all the 7 areas of life that we're doing here, one a week, the finance area, we will guide you through the ULA framework, which includes this green gap formula. And so I have listed on the screen the green gap steps. So as we've talked about today, it's establishing that monthly budget. And after you establish that monthly budget, you identify what is my green gap? How much money is left over at the end of the month? If it is 0, then we have got to go up here in these expenses and start trimming them down somehow, right? We've got to figure out what can we sell, or we've got to figure out where else can we add an income so that we can increase our green gap. So we want to figure that out. And again, the green gap is the income minus your expenses. So we're maximizing the gap by selling unneeded items or earning extra money. Then we are apportioning the gap 45% in investment, 45% to pay off debt, and we're keeping 10% of that just to have fun. Some financial experts are much more hardline than what the ULA framework suggests, and they don't allow for this extra 10%. They say, no, you're paying off debt or you're putting it in to your emergency fund, and that's it. But we found that if you allow yourself to have a little fun every day or every week, then you're going to be able to get through the discipline process. Okay? And you'll be more disciplined on those days when you just have to pay off pay off the bills, and invest in your emergency fund. So we continue to repeat the process. And then once we have paid off our debts, and we're going to really start, and we've got our emergency fund established, we're going to start investing that money into some type of good mutual fund. And that's going to be something you're going to want extra help with from either a special financial planner or possibly your banker, wherever you do your banking. But you want to get someone's advice on where should I invest my money. And then as you learn those basic principles, many people like Dr. Troy take over their own investments and they handle where they're putting their money and they invest it as they wish to. So that is the kind of the green gap formula and how it applies and what we teach in the ULA framework. And we would, as ULA Life coaches, take you through these steps. You're not all going to start out with figuring out what dollar cost averaging does, but that's something that you're going to learn as you go into the area of investment and how it helps to really take total power over your money. So dollar cost averaging actually is when you invest consistently. I'm going to put in $500, $800 a month into investment, and I'm going to consistently do it. I'm not going to necessarily put in $50,000 all at once. I'm going to consistently over time invest this money. Sometimes the market is high, like it was back in January. And sometimes the stock market goes down, like it did when COVID-19 happened. And if you are investing your money over time, you're utilizing dollar cost averaging, because what investment you're buying may have been $50 one day, but it's $40 the next month, and it's $30 the next month, and then it's $40 again. And so over time, the consistent approach of investing your money on a monthly basis utilizes the dollar cost averaging practice that allows your money to grow, and you will gain interest even faster and gain more money and build that retirement income that you're looking for. So just think about what it would feel like to be free of debt. Can you imagine? It may be difficult for you to imagine that. If that's the case, then think about what would it be like to not have to pay that one credit card that has so much, and focus on that first. You know, in ULA, we take small steps. We utilize our 3x5 cards, and we have action steps every day that we're going to do. And by doing those small steps every day, over time, things start to get accomplished and we move closer to our goals, and we finally start achieving the dreams that we wanted to achieve. So, Darla, with that, I will let you close us out today.
Yeah, so for ULA coaching and ULA finance, just want to say, like, do you guys know personality colors and that sort of thing? So if you do the yellow, blue, green, red personality colors, I'm more blue, yellow. Kevin is more green, and I am a science person, and I understand how to do a spreadsheet, and I understand all this finance stuff. It's not where I'm driven from. And so if that's you, you're okay. There's help, there's support. I will tell you, this isn't my language that I speak, but I also started my life over when I was 40 years old with nothing. And now I'm happy, I'm married, my life is amazing, and I'm debt free except our mortgage, which is pretty phenomenal because most of Americans, at least, are have credit cards that are around 25,000, probably more now, like much higher than that for a lot of people. So um, I get it. Kevin gets it. Yes, we have different personalities. Yes, we can help you differently. Um, but we get you, and we know finance is difficult, and it puts a lot of stress on your life, and it affects all the other areas of ULA. It affects everything in your life. So we know how hard it can be, and we just want you to know that. Also, investing in ULA coaching is investing for yourself, and the return on that investment is like this whole new life and this whole new energy. And, if investing in ULA coaching can help you reduce your debt and be more free and have better relationship with your spouse, with your family, enjoy the work that you do every day. Wow, I don't really know what that's worth, but I've seen people change their life with ULA, and we would love to help you on that path. So until next time, we will go over the other 7 F's of ULA and his and hers, and we'll do much shorter little bits and pieces as we go, but we wanted to get the foundation here. So I know these videos are a little bit lengthy. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you investing in you and coming and visiting with us today and listening. And any comments that you guys want to add, we're happy to answer all your comments later. We know you'll be watching these videos later. So please reach out to us whenever you have questions or want some more help. You good? Thanks, you guys.